Welcome back. Panelists here, Mariana Sotomayor, congressional reporter for The Washington Post. John Howman, executive editor of The Recount, and yes, of The Circus, of course. Brendan Buck, Republican strategist and former advisor to House Speakers Paul Ryan and John Boehner. And Kimberly Atkins Storr, senior opinion writer for the Boston Globe. Look, it was The Atlantic this week, Mariana, that sort of put the democracy issue, January 6th, front and center. It's clear they're doing a year-ender. Then we had this Summit for Democracy. And it has really been a head-scratcher, the Summit for Democracy, because what other democracy has their last leader not conceding the election?
Right. It's been very difficult, even for Biden, who ran on making sure that democracy can be saved, not just in the U.S., but also abroad. And it's difficult to make that argument for him because we've had January 6th. And, you know, we're coming up on the one-year anniversary. It is so hard to believe it's right around the corner. And you still, on Capitol Hill, have many Republicans denying that that was an insurrection. They don't like calling these people insurrectionists. And you have Democrats who have sworn off actually working with Republicans who voted against certifying the election. So it is very tense still on Capitol Hill.
I want to read what Bart Gellman wrote in that cover story for The Atlantic. Some might say this is hyperbolic, but John Howman, I'm curious if you think it is. The headline is, Trump's next coup has already begun. Trump and his party have convinced a dauntingly large number of Americans that the essential workings of democracy are corrupt, that made-up claims of fraud are true, that only cheating can thwart the victory at their polls, that tyranny has usurped their government, and that violence is a legitimate response. Hyperbolic or fact?
Fact, I think. And I think the thing about the strength of this Gelman piece is it lays out, first of all, the extraordinary reality that there's this research that shows that something like at least 8% and maybe as many as 12% of the American people now say that Joe Biden was illegitimate and that violence is an appropriate tool to removing him and restoring Donald Trump. That's somewhere between 20 and 30 million people. That's a mass movement in America in favor of political violence, which is a new thing. We've had political violence in America before, lynching, many things over the course of time that African Americans suffered from. But this is 30 million people right now who are ready to take up arms. You put that together with what the president, the former president, I should say, and his allies are doing in the political realm. State houses, state legislatures, and the party apparatus to be able to engineer a situation where they are in a stronger position to pull off a coup in 2024 than they were in 2020. That's not hyperbolic at all. Those are all facts.
You are playing producer here. In fact, I have a scroll here of everybody the former President Brendan has endorsed that has a role in certifying elections. I've not included members of Congress in here. He's gotten involved in state Senate races, state House races, and there is just one litmus test, just one. This feels as if we're entering a place that is going to get darker and darker if the election is less than 1% on any level.
Yeah, I'm not too concerned about voting laws in Georgia and Texas, and I know some people may disagree with that. What really concerns me is people like Jody Hice, who's a Freedom Caucus member in the House, who's running for Secretary of State in Georgia. Now, the only reason he is running for Secretary of State in Georgia is he wants to take out Brad Raffensperger, who is the Georgia Secretary of State, who pushed back on all of Trump's claims and said that the election was not stolen there. Now, if we have people all across the country who are put in the position where they will not confirm or certify an election result, that's the nightmare scenario that I'm worried about. And it's very clear that's what they're trying to do all across the country. And then you take it a step further. The real nightmare scenario is a GOP Congress in the House that won't certify a democratic election down the road. But I think some of those things are the things that people talk about the most right now, the voting laws, those are not actually the real big concerns.
You know, Kimberly, though, it was in the 1850s, 60s, and 70s, you'd have instances where you had multiple people claiming the governorship. And this is, yes, we had alternative slates of election. I mean, this is not something that we're making up. This has happened before, and it feels like they're copying the playbook.
Yeah, it has happened before. I mean, I point to other violence that's happened before. A civil war happened before. So there is precedent for a lot of this, and that's exactly why people should be so concerned. What you have, and one thing I do disagree that the voting measures that are being passed in these states are not problematic. But what you have that's even worse is that you have an entire party. It's no longer just about Donald Trump. It's a party that's about adopting his tactic, which is you deny the results of the last election, or else you move forward with efforts to try to subvert democracy or else. There is no place. I mean, just knowing that there's no place in the Republican Party for a Charlie Baker, knowing that there's no place in the Republican Party. These are the people that are being driven out. And this is fealty not just to Trump, but to an idea of being anti-democracy. You have to put winning above even that.
Well, you bring up Peter Meyer, Mariana, is a member of Congress. He's from Michigan. He voted for impeachment. His own sister believes all of Trump's lies. And here's what he told Tim Alberta. While grieving his sister's obsession with conspiracy theories, he has to work alongside the very people, like fellow freshman Marjorie Taylor Greene, who are pushing those lies. They make folks like my sister think they're on her team, Meyer says, and that's what pisses me off. They aren't the ones paying the price when the consequences come due. Paul Gosar wasn't shot on January 6th. Actually, Babbitt was.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting to see now, are people like the congressman, like-minded people, there are very few of them, going to start pushing leadership to denounce Marjorie Taylor Greene and all of those in that MAGA squad a little bit more? There is frustration boiling up because leadership hasn't really dealt with them. Behind the scenes, McCarthy has, you know, talked with them, but he's also talked, for example, with Nancy Mace when she and Marjorie Taylor Greene were getting at it on Twitter. And people like the congressman were like, well, why are you also punishing her instead of Greene, who continues to attack everyone?
Peter Meyer stands out because he's willing to say the truth, and he's new. And I think what he's going to learn is the reason that so many elected GOP officials don't push back. It's not because of their some master plan. It's not because Donald Trump told them not to. It's because of their constituents. Yeah. Their constituents believe this, and they don't want to get yelled at by their constituents. And until that changes, you're not going to see anything change. Roger Marshall provided an answer that he knows his constituents won't yell at him about who won the last election, and they've all settled on that. That's what this all comes down to. And until we realize it's the people who believe this stuff, it's not going to change.
Except for the fact that their constituents are driven by the combination of Donald Trump, who still has this massive influence, and the echo chamber of Fox News and Newsmax and OANN that have been broadcasting this propaganda. It's a feedback cycle, right? The constituents are coming up with these ideas on their own. And I'll just say, Chuck, it's like I did an interview with Bannon in October 2020, and he said there are going to be knife fights in the counting rooms. Knife fights in the counting rooms. They lost those knife fights in 2020. Yeah. All of this is about being able to control those counting rooms and win those knife fights in 2024.
Steve Bannon does not believe in democracy. No. That is pretty clear to me.
No. Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.